Hi everybody, Levi Clay here, and I'm back again to make one of my favourite types of videos, one where I get to talk about the benefits of looking at and learning about different styles of music. For those of you that have followed my channel for a long time, you'll know that professionally I've worked in lots and lots of different genres of music, from the country guitar to the slide guitar, the rock guitar, jazz guitar, blues guitar. All of these styles of music are sounds that I'm genuinely very interested in. I love the sound of different styles of music and listening to them. So today we are going to talk about bebop. But before we do that, I'm going to beg you actually, please do hit that like button, leave a little comment, let me know that you're watching the video, and potentially subscribe. It all helps with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you very much. You guys are absolutely awesome. Anyway, so bebop. Why am I into bebop? What is the story of bebop? Well, to me, bebop is it's the youth sound that I was into. Of course, it's a subgenre of jazz music. Now, I think it's really important to note that subgenres are extremely important. You might be listening to this video now being a fan of metal music. And if you're a fan of metal music, you will know that there are lots of different subgenres of metal. You will know that just because you are into metal, it doesn't mean that you are into all types of metal music. If you say to your family, I'm a big metalhead, and they say, oh, fantastic, I've just bought you tickets to Five Finger Death Punch, you might be really happy with that, or you might be really unhappy with that. It totally depends on what your area of interest in your chosen sound is. And jazz is a bold statement, but let's go with a much broader genre than rock or metal is. And I'm saying that just based on the fact that it's an older genre of music. It's a sound that's been around for well over 100 years now. So of course there are many subgenres as the sound has developed in different areas of the world. For me, there are styles of jazz that I'm not particularly into, so like the modern jazz sound, guys like, let's go with Holdsworth, but I'm actually thinking more modern guys like Ben Monder or Kurt Rosenwinkel. I appreciate what these guys are doing, and I know tons of you guys out there love that sound, but it's not really my cup of tea. When it comes to jazz, I'm really into early swing, and I'm really, really into bebop. I've always really been into bebop, and let me tell you why. So, well, being a young guy, being somebody that was interested in rock guitar, technique was fun. And when I listened to bebop for the first time, it was about playing to a high level. This is high level players. And when you look at the history of bebop, where this sound really came from, it came out of this idea of wanting to kind of exclude the old guys. The young kids were coming up and they wanted to play music that wasn't for, as they would call those mouldy figs, the old guys that kind of ran the scene, the guys that you would expect to see at all of the jam nights. So kids were coming in and making this music that was faster tempos, more complex changes, and you're having to really play a lot of complicated stuff in order to get by in it. It's at its core, a very anti-establishment music when you think about it. And I always found that really fascinating. I often describe bebop as kind of the original punk music. It's anti-establishment music from a young, angry generation of people. Now, of course, very different to punk in ethos, but I think there's some similarities there, and I always found that really interesting. So bebop is a sound about fire. Let's go with fire. I think fire is a great description for bebop. If you compare Charlie Parker's music to Duke Ellington's music, you find a lot more flair in what Charlie Parker was writing. So let's talk about the bebop book, or the real bebop book. So this is another one of the Hal Leonard real books. It's a little bit smaller than obviously the real book, and it's smaller than the R&B real book, but still a huge selection of tunes. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is head down into the description. I've created a Spotify playlist that contains every single song in this book, so you can really get to grips with it. And I want to state, like I did on my previous video, I'm not necessarily advocating for the use of real books. I think that if you're a professional jazz musician, which I should obviously state I am not, but if you're a professional jazz musician, learning to play songs from the real book is not really the way that it's done. I'm not encouraging you to get a copy of this book or take an interest in this book because then you'll learn to play bebop. That's never the idea. But this is a wonderful example of bebop standards. If you're looking to get interested in the sound of bebop, where better to go to get an idea of what that subgenre of jazz is all about than this book? It is full of absolutely classic compositions, all from that bebop style. Now, of course, you're going to have all of the big names, the guys you'd expect, the Charlie Parkers, the Dizzy Gillespies. There's a lot of Miles Davis in here. You're going to get a lot of Coltrane in here, a lot of Dexter Gordon in here. But you will find some lesser known names. If I swing through here, some tunes. In fact, in the intro, I decided before I even did this, I was going to put the song Blue Brew in here, yeah, which is a Brew More tune. There's a lot of is it Tad Dameron? Yeah, Cherokee here, which of course is a Ray Noble tune, but lots of people have played that. George Shearing, lots of Horace Silver. There's even some Duke Ellington in here, because ultimately that bebop style is not just about compositions, but also playing other people's music and putting your own modern twist on it, which is where we get into the interesting subject of contrafacts. Now, this isn't really a lesson on the complexity of what contrafact is. I would encourage you to go and check out some of the great videos on them. I'm sure Adam Neely has a great video on contrafacts. But in essence, a contrafact is where you take an existing composition, an existing set of chord changes, and then compose a new melody over the top of it. And then essentially you can play several songs that are functionally the same song, but you just have a different melody at the start of them. That's a great way to continue, developing your ability to play over a certain set of chord changes. You'll hear this in Charlie Parker's music. He liked to play over like the rhythm changes, for example. So that was, of course, the Gershwin tune, I Got Rhythm. There are many, many tunes that are composed using the same chord changes, but they have different melodies. For example, the tune Olio is a contrafact of the tune I Got Rhythm. And you'll find that the more you look through this book, you'll find a lot of similarities. So an excellent, excellent book. And when it comes to looking at the Spotify playlist for this was very different from the R&B Reel book. Because when it comes to the R&B Reel book, well, we're talking about songs that have been composed and released by an artist. Well, these are actually jazz standards. Many, many people have played all of the songs in this book. Most of the songs in this book have been played by many people. So what I've gone for when I created that Spotify playlist is just one example of each. But if you find a tune that you think is cool in terms of the melody, then absolutely go and look for that tune. Look at different recordings of that tune, because you're going to hear different groups playing that, different soloists taking shots on that. And this is jazz. It's an improvised form of music, so there's a lot of variation between recordings. So when it comes to the negative things that I'd have to say about this book, well, I have to say that when it comes to melodies and things like that, some of the melodies aren't nearly as accurate as you might want them to be. I was a little bit bemused looking at the John Coltrane tune Impressions, which if I bring up for you, somewhere, the magic of editing. If I bring up the tune Impressions, you can't really see that, but it's worth pointing out that this is a contrafact actually of the Miles Davis tune, So What? But when it comes to the melody, the way the melody has been written for this, I listened to multiple recordings of Coltrane playing this tune, and never did he play the melody quite like this. If I was to write the melody out for this tune, this isn't how I would write it. I would put a little bit more detail in. There's certainly, I don't want to say inaccuracies, because you could play this and everybody would understand that you're playing impressions, but the point is, it's an impression of impressions, if you like. It's not the way that you would expect someone to play it. It's close enough, but it's not perfect. So when it comes to things like that, and any jazz guy will tell you this, you should never be taking the real book incredibly seriously, because guys that play jazz music, they're embellishing melodies. They are doing new things. They're improvising around melodies rather than playing like classical music would be, where you're playing a composed melody and you're playing exactly as stated by the composer. So there is a lot more work that needs to go into this style if you want to become a better performer of it. And also, I mean, it is a wonderful selection of tunes, but I mean, there's a lot of Charlie Parker in here, and you would kind of expect that, because Bird is one of the biggest names in bebop and one of the most important names in bebop. But I think there are certainly some tunes that I think are missing from here. I think tunes like Straight No Chaser would be a nice inclusion in here. But having said that, I really can't complain. The ultimate idea, as I said with this video, is not necessarily to say you should go and buy this book and you will become a bebop player, but much more a case of you should go and look into this particular sound. You should go and look into the sound of bebop. Check out the Spotify playlist and see if you find things that you enjoy the sound of. There's a lot of saxophone on there, and I love the sound of saxophone. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy that. The Real Bebop book Go and check it out, listen to the music, and let me know what you think of this crazy, wild, let's go with punk, this punk bebop sound. It's fantastic and I absolutely love it. Finally, I just want to say a huge thank you to these wonderful people down here. This channel wouldn't exist without their love, kindness, generosity and support. And actually, I should also point out, this book, I didn't even have to buy this book. This was a present from one of my longtime friends, Connor. So Connor, thank you very much for the book. Wonderful birthday present. And yeah, I'm going to enjoy looking into this. I'm actually going to use this for my monthly study club stream, which I'll be doing for all of my patrons this month. So if you would like to join us this Saturday, check out the link in the description, and I'll be going through some of this book, learning some of the tunes, playing some changes and having some fun with it. If that doesn't appeal to you, you can also head on over to Amazon, check out one of my books, and yeah, great way to support the channel. Thank you very much, guys, for the love and support. It means a lot. As I said in the start, please do hit that like button, leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys for another video very soon. Goodbye.